Once upon a time, there lived a clever cat named Pinky. Pinky wasn't like other cats. While most cats spent their days lounging in sunbeams or chasing mice, Pinky had a rather peculiar hobby. She loved to pull wedges. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world is a wedge? Well, let me explain. In Pinky's town, a wedge was a large wooden plank used to hold up the town's famous giant tree during the yearly harvest festival. The tree had a trunk so thick it required a team of strong animals to hold it steady, and the wedge was the secret to keeping everything upright. But Pinky was no ordinary cat. Every year during the festival, when the time came for the big tree hoisting ceremony, she would sneak up and tug at the wedge with all her might. No one knew exactly why she did it, but one thing was clear. When Pinky pulled the wedge, everything seemed to go hilariously wrong, and incredibly right. One crisp autumn morning, as the festival was about to begin, the townsfolk were busy preparing. The local carpenter, Mr. Tinkerton, polished the wedge, and the animals gathered, ready to pull the ropes tied to the tree. Pinky, however, was nowhere to be seen. The mayor, a plump and jolly woman named Mayor Plum, stood at the front of the crowd with her clipboard. "All right, everyone, let's make sure the tree stays upright for another successful harvest. Ready, set." But before she could even finish her sentence, a furry blur zipped past her and launched itself right at the wedge. It was Pinky. With a heroic leap, she latched onto the giant wooden wedge and pulled with all her tiny feline might. "Meow! Meow!" she cried, as if this was the most important thing she had ever done. The crowd gasped, and the townspeople started laughing. Pinky wasn't pulling in the usual way. She was rolling over, hopping in circles, and making silly faces, all while holding on to that wedge for dear life. It was as if the wedge had become her very own toy. Pinky kept tugging, her little legs straining as the wedge shifted ever so slightly. Suddenly, with a comical pop, the wedge slipped completely out from under the tree. The whole town gasped. The tree, which had been leaning just a little, now began to wobble. But instead of crashing, something even stranger happened. The tree tilted, and the town's yearly tradition began in the most unusual way. The tree, instead of toppling over, slowly rolled forward, and, like magic, the tree trunk landed perfectly atop a patch of soft grass, right next to the festival stage. It was as if Pinky had meant to do this all along. The crowd roared with laughter and clapped their hands. Pinky, now quite pleased with herself, stood proudly in front of the wedge. Her tail flicked in satisfaction. She had not only pulled the wedge, but she had somehow made the tree land in the perfect spot for the festival's grand opening. The townspeople had never seen anything quite like it. Mayor Plum marched up to Pinky with a big grin. "Pinky, you've outdone yourself. The tree has never looked better, and the festival has never started off with such a bang." From that day on, Pinky became the official wedge puller of the festival. Every year, just before the tree hoisting, she would tug at the wedge in her silly, over-the-top way, and no one could ever stop laughing. It was the best part of the whole festival. And as for Pinky, well, she was quite content. She'd found her calling, and it didn't involve naps in sunbeams or chasing mice. It involved pulling wedges, causing chaos, and making everyone around her laugh. And there was no greater joy than that. And so, the town continued to celebrate their harvest festival, with Pinky pulling the wedge in her own delightful way, making every year just a little bit more fun and a lot more memorable.